Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome back. A familiar face with me this time. If you've been watching, listening to the show for a year, you know Monica. She's been on a couple times now, and thankfully she's taken some time out of her schedule again to discuss transitioned about a year ago into the new opportunity. So I know when we discussed you coming on again, we wanted to talk about that year mark. So first, congrats, and second, thank you for jumping on here and being with me again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I was really excited for the opportunity to come back and do the 1 year check-in. It's crazy how much changes in a year.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And if you've watched or listened to a Monica episode before, you know there will be some Disney discussion. So if you're not, that will be coming because it's not an episode unless we discuss all things Disney. And there's a lot
Oh
to
my.
discuss there too, for sure. But we'll jump into the job transition first. So, like we said, it's been a year now. You made the move out of the classroom into your new role. So now that you've had some time, what's been some of the most refreshing things for you about the changes that you've made professionally in this past year?
Yeah, absolutely. I jumped from a role at the school district office in the curriculum instructional department, and I'm now a sales development representative in HR technology sales. And specifically in the healthcare division. So that was quite a big jump going from elementary math to going to healthcare, HR, technology. And it's really funny because all of this has happened, and I'm actually in the talent acquisition side. So it's pretty awesome. A couple of things professionally that I would say have been the most refreshing is my obviously my flexibility. I work from home. I'm out here. It's November. I'm in South Florida working outside. That's pretty nice.
So,
Um,
yes.
yeah. So just the flexibility. I mean, we have three kids and I have the opportunity to, start my day when it works for my family, to end my day when it works for my family, to work from anywhere. That's been really nice for me as well. Sometimes I'm having to work. If I have something during the day, sometimes I'll take my computer with me to baseball practice at night and get a couple more things done, or while my son's at football practice. So just having that flexibility and just being able to really be in charge of my schedule has been awesome. Other piece that I has been kind of refreshing since I've made that change is, and this has nothing to do professionally, but for the first time in my adult life, I joined a gym.
Nice.
So, so feeling like I actually have time in my day to do things like take care of myself, that has been huge for my mental health,
Yeah,
and huge for just the person that I want to be, the example that I want to set for my kids. I know that's like a really hard thing to do when you're in the classroom or in education because you're so rigid on a schedule. Uh, Being able to, kind of take care of myself in that way has been really awesome.
yeah. Yeah, one of those overlooked things, and certainly something I don't miss because in the classroom, I was high school, so that's a 7:40 bell time. So if I'm going to the gym, it's 5:30 a.m. And in the winter months, when it's pitch black and 20 degrees, there was zero motivation to do that. So definitely one of those things. And the flexibility, getting the kids on the bus and everything. It's just one of those little things that you're like, oh wow, I can do this. That's nice. So,
It's so nice. It's so nice. But it's also, I don't take it for granted either. I mean, I did, 12 years in education where that wasn't an option. And so every time I get to do something like that, I have extreme gratitude for that. And also, just extreme respect. It so much respect for the education profession.
absolutely, yeah, yep. I'm still married to an educator, so I know the struggle for her for sure.
Yep.
Definitely. So let's talk a little bit. You mentioned 12 years in education, and that decision to move into something new. And we've touched on this before, obviously, but now you've been in the new role for quite some time, and you've had this year to reflect. So, like looking back, that's one of those things I think you and I discussed initially was, you're making this decision. You've dedicated your life, a lot of time, energy. You've pursued a degree, gotten certificates. It's a lot to go that goes into being an educator. So to say, hey, I'm going to do something new and leave all of this behind is just it's wild and it's overwhelming. So, looking back and now that you have had some time to reflect on that, what might have you done differently when you started off that overall process, and how do you feel now knowing that you made this move and left that behind and it's working out for you very well?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would have done differently, I don't even know if I this is a hindsight's 2020
Yeah.
kind of thing. Um, but I'll be super upfront and honest. I really struggled for probably the first 3 or 4 months in my new role. And it's 100% due to my mindset. I think in my job search, I kind of had what I see a lot of teachers have, which is just this mindset of invincibility. Like, oh, I've been a teacher. I can do all of these things and it's going to be fine. And I convinced myself of that. And I will say, like, I have done very well for myself in this new job,
Mhm.
but it didn't start that way.
Yeah.
And the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome was, yes, I have done a lot in my career, but this is my first year of teaching all over again. I
Yeah.
am brand new here. I have a lot of things that I can take, but there is still a huge learning curve in front of me. And I don't think that in my job search that I took the time to really understand and to really think what those first months in a new industry would look like.
Yeah.
Um, so that's just something that, I don't see a lot of people talking about that out on LinkedIn. And it's something to think about. You truly are back at square one in so many ways. And your time and education and your skills, they are valuable, but it's going to take time to understand which pieces of those truly fit into your new role. I don't, did you experience anything like that, Matt?
Absolutely. Yeah. Every single time, honestly. I mean, I moved into different stages of recruitment too. And I just had a coffee chat with someone the other day, and that was one of the things I said. It was like the first day of school every single time, except it's different because you don't get that same routine. You're not talking to the same 20, 30, however many students every day for, 4, 6, however many months it is. You have 30 new people that you're meeting like every day, every other day. So yeah, it's a lot that you need to be prepared for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think the reality, I went in thinking like I've done teaching, like you can't surprise me. And the reality is that, oh, wait a second, sit back
Oh
down, Monica. You can be surprised.
yeah,
But the cool thing about that, the full circle there is that once I really started to understand things, I have I have brought on tools from my time in education and said, hey, why are we doing it this way? Let's try this. And it's taken off.
yeah.
So it's just a matter of going through that growing pain,
Mhm.
um, that, everybody's going to go through it. And, you're going to find within a couple of months when you start to get start to get your sea legs a little bit,
Yeah.
you're going to find that your time in education is very transferable.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can tell you've done this show with me before because you just tee up the next question. I'm going to bounce them around a little bit because it's not in perfect order of the way I send them to you. But you mentioned that learning curve and everything like that. So we're going to talk about the transferable skills, of course, because we always talk about that. But what are some of those skills that you found you needed to develop, so far in this new role? Some of the things that didn't come as naturally to you, the things that the classroom didn't necessarily prepare you for, that people who are making that move should be aware of, should be ready for.
Okay, so I think that answer is going to be different for, everybody going into all sorts of different things.
Mhm.
Things that were very transferable for me, which I was completely unexpected for me, was educational frameworks. Specifically being in sales, I use RTI, the idea of like an RTI model, like your tier one and then your tier two and then your tier three support. I use that RTI model to do most of my job. I
Mhm.
use it to prospect. I use it when I'm, tiering out my accounts and understanding which accounts I need to be working and why, which accounts to prioritize and which not, which, maybe aren't in a buying cycle right now and what to do. Which I did not think that that was going to come in handy.
Mhm.
Uh, or that I would ever have to talk about it. And now, one of the cool things is that I did have that struggle at the beginning and I learned a lot. And so now I've actually been tasked with doing a lot of mentoring for my team.
Nice.
And I have, taken my approaches in teaching and I've been able to mentor new hires now in the company. And I'm very proud. My new hires are crushing it.
Yeah.
But it's being able to, being able to break down that content, use those different approaches, make things easy to understand. That has been absolutely my superpower.
Yeah. Definitely. So, curveball question for you here, but I think it's one that you'll be able to handle easily. But when it comes to, you mentioned that you want to make this transition. I'm a teacher. I can do everything. And certainly that is very true. But at the same time, then when you get in that new role, was there ever an instance where you were like, "Oh, I don't want to ask a question. I can handle this because I came in so prepared. I knew I was going to be able to handle this." What was that learning curve like for you to like ask for that assistance, get that support early on while still showcasing your skills?
I The funny thing is that I think my mindset was one thing and my approach to it was different.
Mhm.
Um, there is so much collaboration that happens in education
Yeah.
that teachers are naturally ingrained to seek support,
Mhm.
at least in my experience.
Yeah.
So for me, my mindset was like, I can do all of this, I can figure it out. But I would never, I never hesitated to go and ask for support and
No.
say, hey, this is what I think. This is what I'm understanding, but I need to know from somebody else. What are you doing over here? What are you doing over here? What are you doing over here? And that's something that's best practice in education. And it followed me
Yeah.
into my new role. And I think that a lot of it is, I begged, borrowed, and stealed from people in my company who had been there before and took pieces of things that they'd done and made it my own, which is very much what you do as a teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, if people follow you, they know that you always have a lot of positive things to say about your employer. You speak very highly of the company itself. And you and I talked during your search, and you stressed the importance of finding that right employer, the one that was going to have the same, core values that aligned with your core values. So walk me through that process a little bit now, looking back, what has been going right, went into the decision initially, and how has that been affirmed over this past year now that you've been in the role with this company?
Oh my gosh, I do love the company that I work for. And I think where that really came from initially is I made it a point to start when I was in the process of interviewing to interview them back. I never went into an interview thinking all of the pressure was on me
Mhm.
to do something or to be some kind of way. I was truly looking for a relationship with a company, and I went into every interview as a conversation. And that dialogue back and forth from the time that my I started talking with my recruiter to, even reaching out to people on the company aside, that I hadn't talked to yet, that everything was dialogue.
Mhm.
And that's really what drove me to say, yes, this is for me, because I wanted somewhere that it would be dialogue. I didn't want to come in and feel like I was in a sterile environment where it was one-sided and they me, but I didn't know a whole lot back.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing, is that I made it a point to make sure every single one of my interviews was dialogue. And I did interview with other companies, and they were fantastic. And I had great interviews with those companies, but I also had interviews that didn't necessarily have as much dialogue.
So,
And so that was really what drove me to ultimately say yes to Phenom. Um, the other piece of it was and I know this now, how important this is. I wouldn't have known this in my process though. For the line of work that I went into sales, making sure that you have a strong product that you're going to be selling, have a
Mhm.
strong belief in the product, and have a strong market value.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a lot of teachers who are exploring opportunities in sales, and sales is a great place to be when you have those three things aligned. When you have a strong product, you have a strong belief in the product, you have a strong market value. So not every sales position I don't think is lucky enough to say that they have that, and I got really lucky with that.
Yeah, yeah, and you brought up a great point in terms of like getting that affirmation from current employees. That's one of those things that's often overlooked and something that I leaned on in my own search years ago, when I was considering other options, how quickly I'm getting feedback from people that work there, what they're saying. Sometimes you don't hear anything back. And, that is what it is. You can't hold that against people.
Yeah.
But if there's, a quick willingness to say that, it certainly speaks a lot for the company. So, I mean, we discussed your move from the classroom. You and I stayed connected while you were searching for something new. But obviously, I'm not the only person that you spoke to, and you've shouted out other people who were, very, there for along the way, along the ride. So, I think that's one of the overwhelming things for people in their search is they hear so many different pieces of advice. There's no one size fits all. This is how you find your next job type of thing. So, now that you're looking back, how did you go about that process of using the different advice, the different insight that you were getting, and crafting that for the search that was going to work for you?
I started my job search actually in December of 2022. Yes. In December of 2022 is when I started my job search. And I started off doing the thing where you obsess over your resume and then you start just spamming it out and sitting and hoping and waiting.
Mm.
Uh, and I got a couple nibbles, couple little things, but I never had anything that was ever going to be competitive, that I was ever going to be competitive at. And so I think when things started to change for me is when I started to reach out and say, hey, I've done this for long enough and I'm not getting results. What am I doing wrong here? And I started to really use my network. And not even to just use the network that I already had, but to expand my network. So what I would do is I would go onto the job boards and I wanted to know who was hiring for the roles that I wanted.
Mhm.
Because if people are hiring for those roles, there's obviously a need in that specific company. And so that's when I felt like I wasn't going in completely cold. I was going into like a warmer situation.
Yeah.
So I would go to the job boards, find a job that I was really interested in, and I would start networking within the company. And I would submit my resume on the career site first, and then I would start reaching out to people in the company to
Uh,
get more insight and info. And that's when everything really started to click for me. And I changed my job search strategy towards a more proactive networking approach rather than just like sitting and spraying and praying.
right.
Um, it's really interesting because now I do work in talent acquisition technology. So I don't do the job of a recruiter. Obviously, I'm in sales, but I sell talent acquisition technology. And being on the other end of the conversations, I'm working with VPs of talent acquisition, C levels of talent acquisition all day, every day. And the conversations that I have with them are focused so heavily on job skills,
Hmm.
right? So for teachers who are transitioning and really understanding the skills you have and then the skills of the job that you're applying to is what's I think going to help you stick out even further.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And let's talk about networking because, obviously that was a key component of the search. But, you and I have talked, networking is a two-way street. And, now that you're in this position now and you've kind of maintained that presence, you're still very active on the networking aspect of LinkedIn and being there as a means to help and support. So was that something that you knew that, once I get my role, this doesn't stop, I'm going to give back, I'm sending the elevator back down type of approach to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I knew that, if I could make it happen for myself, that I would immediately turn around and reach back over the wall and pull the next person up.
Mhm.
Um, and I have done that. I have recommended people. I have, spent many conversations on Zoom, walking teachers through what worked for me. Recommending people for jobs. I did have a friend of mine that I recommended, and it's the first job that she'd applied to, and it was just perfect, perfect timing kind of thing. But I will say, I now being in the position that I'm at in sales, it's a really hard balance maintaining on LinkedIn an identity
Yeah.
because so much of me wants to write, towards the teacher audience, but then the other part of me in sales says, okay, brand recognition and establishing credibility in the role is also equally as important. So I do have more work to do in that. And I try to, anybody that DMs me, I try to get back to them. And if somebody's watching this and I haven't gotten back to you, just ping me again. I'm just a very forgetful person, to be honest.
Yeah.
Busy. I'm a mom. I've got three kids. I got a job. Um, but I will say yes, 100%. And I think the crazy thing is that any teacher that has been through a career change would say the exact same thing, is that, you want to help the next person succeed, and you find joy in doing that. Um, I wouldn't say that I find joy in um, taking teachers out of classrooms. I do battle, and I think a lot of teachers I talk to who have made the career change, they do kind of have that internal struggle of they want to see the education system just succeed, and it's heartbreaking for us.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I battle sometimes with myself, but
Yeah.
overall, yes, I love to help.
Yeah, I mean that is kind of that thing, and one I struggle with too, because obviously I have a platform where I can give people who have made the move into something new that opportunity to share that story, but at the same time, like you don't want to give the impression that it's this wasteland. Like we need good teachers, we need strong educators, and so that should be my question to you then. That advice portion, you have someone that comes to you for advice. How do you try to encourage them while at the same time, telling them to keep their options open? Because at the end of the day, what they're doing matters. What they're doing is so important. And you still have to, you don't want to see them lose that passion for it.
No, truly, I encourage them. A lot of the teachers that come to me in my DMs just say, "Hey, I'm looking to move out of education. Like, what advice do you have?"
Yeah.
And that's kind of broad,
Right.
for me to respond, okay, that's really broad. I have a lot of advice here. But
Yeah.
I think the first thing that I ask them is, what's your reason? What's your why?
Hmm.
Like, why are you actually leaving education? And what do you think that you're going to get out of the other side of it?
Yeah.
Um, if it's because you have a bad boss, or if you have, a difficult student, or, whatever that part of it is, those things that are things that can change. And I even changed my like positioning within education several times for different reasons. But I think just bigger and broader, thinking bigger and broader, what's your long-term goal? If your long-term goal is to fix a short-term problem, I would encourage reevaluating it. For me, my long-term goal was career mobility, was expanding my personal growth, and
Hmm.
I was in a position where I had neither of those. And so that was that was my reason for leaving education, is that I did not have that opportunity any longer.
Yeah.
Um, if my reason would have been, well, I don't like my principal, right?
Yeah.
Is that long term? Because there are places, outside of education that it the grass isn't greener. It's just a different shade
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
It's sometimes it's just a different shade of what you've already got. And so for me, I'm very fortunate. I landed in a fantastic place and I feel incredibly blessed. But I also know educators who've had a different experience out there.
Yeah.
I think the alignment of your long-term vision, what you want out of your career, is probably what should answer the questions for you.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, fantastic advice, insight as always. But as promised at the start of the show, we do have the Disney question. And I'm throwing it back. When I started Maximize Monday, our format was 3-2-1. We had three goals, two motivators, one win from the week before. So we're going to do a 3-2-1 approach for this. You have Park Hopper. I'm asking for your perfect Disney day. So, what three restaurants, breakfast, lunch, dinner? What two rides? And then what fireworks show are you ending it with?
Okay, three restaurants. Um, oh man, there's so many to choose from.
I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
You really are. Okay, so breakfast. Breakfast, I'm not too picky about.
Okay.
Anywhere that has Mickey waffles.
Okay. Fair enough.
Mickey waffles, that's where it's at. Lunch, perfect park day would be a little bit lighter of a lunch because I want to go all out for dinner.
Mhm.
Um, so lunch, I would say a quick service bowl at Satuli Canteen in Pandora's Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, I'm on board.
Yep, yep. And then I would say dinner would be Artist Point with character dining with Snow White and the Evil Queen.
Okay.
There we go.
There's your meals. What are the two rides? I think I know one already. You and I have talked about it, but I'll leave that to your answer here.
Okay, so my answer, my two rides would be Guardians of the Galaxy,
Uh,
Cosmic Rewind, Lightning Lane, and Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind Virtual Queue.
okay. I
So,
love it.
definitely Guardians. Have you rode Tron yet? Were you there when Tron was open?
Yeah.
Probably Guardians and Tron.
Yeah.
Um, I would say close third would probably be Toy Story Mania because my kids and my husband are now at the age where it gets competitive, and
Yeah.
I do have a record of winning on that one.
Oh, very
Okay,
nice. Very nice.
yes. And one is what?
The which fireworks show are you ending with?
Oh, Happily Ever After all day
All right.
at Magic Kingdom.
I'm more of a phantasmic person, but I do love the castle fireworks. I mean, you can't say
Yeah.
that.
So funny enough, we haven't done fireworks with the kids. Our daughter, our 3-year-old, is terrified of booms.
Mine too. Yeah.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
5-year-old. She was 4 when we went, and she was not having it. So it was fine. We got to leave the park before the crowd, so no complaint.
Yeah. We actually have not been back since they reinstated Happily Ever After. We have not seen it yet since it's been reinstated. We have not seen Phantasmic or I don't even, what's the one at Epcot right now?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
even,
We were walking out when that one was happening too. I've heard it's great. I've heard great things about the Animal Kingdom night show too. Just
yeah, it's just not great when you have someone like screaming and like
right.
pulling on your hair and crying. That's when it's not great. So
Yeah. Not
that's
as
why.
magical of an experience then. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a joy. So.
All right. Well, Monica, this won't be the last time we do this for sure, but thank you again so much for taking some time, always providing fantastic insight. I normally get a lot of great feedback on the episodes that you join me on. So thank you so much. If you're not connected to or following Monica, make sure you're doing that. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Matt.